Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Come on in, get comfortable. Happy Friday. Welcome, welcome. I am in Atlanta. Nia Renee, where are you based?
I am in Fort Worth, Texas.
You're in Texas. So in the
Yes.
chat, comment where you are watching from, whether you're watching Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Shout out the state you are repping. We're gonna have a good time today. I'm so excited to
I'm
have Nia
so
Renee
excited to
here.
be
And this
here.
is just like full circle. I'm trying not to like fan out, but this is really full circle because I first came across your content way back when I first started my Instagram, and I saw a post on TikTok, and it was basically saying like to your mom, like, why didn't you go to therapy? And you were like, because why are you in therapy? And you said, because you didn't go. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to stitch that. And then you reposted it. And I was like, oh my gosh, she reposted me. And so I've just been kind of following your content, loving your content since then. And then when I found out that you were going to go live with me, I was like, this is just full circle again, because you have so many amazing things going on. Your journal, your book. I mean, you're on some huge podcasts and platforms. And I was like, she's going to grace my audience. So thank you so much for being here. So tell me, like you are so vulnerable and open, to the point where you even reenacted the day you left your abuser. Like it can't get no more real than that. It can't get, so what made you decide to open up your life to strangers?
So, thank you. First of all, thank you for having me. I think that that's so funny. Because I think like we connected on Threads first, and
Mhm.
then yeah, because I saw you were looking for people to come on. I was like, absolutely, and I believe I've been following you on Threads for a while, so it's full circle for both of us. So I'm fanning out as well. But yeah, so I actually started How to Love a Battered Woman. It'll be 6 years ago on September the 29th. And I was actually in a narcissistic abuse relationship at the time, and I didn't realize that I was, because I was being gaslit so bad to thinking that I couldn't make relationships work because of things that were happening in my past or the things that happened in my past. So I created How to Love a Battered Woman because I really wanted to platform and give almost notes or experience, or the experience of literally how to love someone who has been through abusive relationships or has a traumatic past, especially with me having narcissistic mother, a lot of childhood trauma, sexual assault trauma, everything like that. So I really wanted to create something, and then I created the How to Love Me journal out of that situation with my ex, and it kind of just blossomed from there. I didn't really know where I wanted to go with it. Like I didn't know where I wanted to start. So I just started a blog, and then it kind of just kept going. And then I joined TikTok at the height of the pandemic. So right at the top of 2021. And I don't know. I just one day I was like, I'm just gonna do a skit. And it just kind of went from there. And I think it's just valuable and very important for survive victims and survivors to feel like they can use their voice, because we're always told it's a manipulation tactic to silence us. And so I was just I can't shut up. Like that's just really it. Like I can't stop talking. I'm going to tell my story. I've always felt something was wrong. Even growing up, I always felt things were off. So I was like, I'm going to tell my story, and we're going to get into it. And now here we are, and
Here we are.
beyond
Yeah.
my wildest dreams.
And you mentioned in your story that the first time you experienced assault, or the first time he put his hands on you, you were like, I'm gonna chalk it up. We're drinking, or, maybe we're just both out of character.
Mhm.
And then the second time it happened, it was broad daylight. And that really hit me. And I will have to say I commend you for your transparency, because at first I actually had to write my book twice. I wrote my book. Um, it's launching September 1st, but I wrote my book
Ooh.
yeah. I wrote my book the first time, and I didn't want to I didn't want to tell my story. I wanted it to be very focused on clients, and when
Yeah.
you're a therapist, it's like you've got to kind of like you got to be careful to kind of like make sure that you are highlighting your client's experience and what they're going through. And then my line sister was like, but did you ask God if that's his will? And what did you ask God what he wanted in your book? And I went back and I rewrote the whole thing, and I opened up and I shared my experience, which I have never done before. But I witnessed my father hitting my mom,
Wow.
and it stayed with me and it changed me in so many ways. And so
Yeah.
when you said, oh, the first time it happened, you're kind of in like this shock, like confusion. Is this real? You're trying to put the pieces together. And then when it happens again, you have a decision, a hard decision. You then, with sober mind, have to decide, I now, what am I going to do? So, like, tell me about that.
Yeah, so I kind of delineate between the exes that I have. So the ex you're talking about is who I refer to as my physically abusive ex.
Okay. Okay.
And so I actually just reached my 10-year freedom day from him on the 7th of
Which
August.
came first? Which came first? The narcissistic
The
abuse?
physical.
Okay, so
Yep,
physical,
the
and then
physical.
okay,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, so we had been together for almost 2 years, and that was my first really real relationship. I was in college. It was my we met my fresh sophomore year, I believe. Yeah, my sophomore year in college. We were both playing basketball, and it was like the love and basketball type whatever, and the front of looking good on social media, couples goals situation. But a lot of things were going on behind closed doors that I didn't really understand and that I thought was normal. And so the first time him and I had gotten into it, it was we were at a party at his sister's house, and we had a rule, which if you have to make a rule to not be on certain social media sites because that person can't behave, then you don't need to be with that
Mhm,
person. But we had a rule that neither of us were going to have Snapchat.
mhm,
And I saw him on Snapchat at the party, and he told me he was on it because that's the only way he could reach a certain friend.
mhm,
And I got upset. I went and sat outside. While I'm sitting outside, there's a girl walking up, and I can hear her talking about him and how she was excited to be there to see him and how attractive he was. And I was like, what is going on? But mind you, we're at a party, playing beer pong, taking shots, throwing
mhm,
butt, like we're having a good time. And so I walk back in, and he's talking badly about me to our mutual friends.
mhm,
And so I confronted him. I was like, why are you doing that? Like, you defend me in public, and handle what we need to talk about in private.
mhm,
And he got upset. He got my face. And I was that type of person where you get my face, I'm gonna get in your face back. Like, I'm gonna
mhm,
stand my ground. His sister gets in between us, and she's trying to diffuse the situation. She literally grabs me by like right here and pushes me so hard into a wall, my head bounced off of it. And
mhm,
so I pushed her. It was just a natural reaction. The next thing I know, I'm getting jumped by his sister and his cousin, and
mhm,
his sister's girlfriend somehow ends up on top of me, kind of like shielding me from both of them hitting me, but also holding me down at the same time. I rolled my ankle. It was bad. Next thing you know, I'm being lifted out in the air. He's got me in over his shoulder, taking me outside. His sister's trying to attack me. We get in the car and we drive home. We get to the apartment, and I just really needed some time to like breathe and understand what was going on. And he said I was being dramatic because I sat down outside. Mind you, my ankle's messed up. I'm limping at this point. So things just continue to escalate. He's grabbing on me, trying to get me inside. He's pushing me,
Mhm.
and I pushed him back. And so it was back where the apartment complex is, like, you had a door and then you had another door. So it was like in the foyer there.
Mhm.
And he puts his forearm in my throat and he's like, "You're gonna remember that I'm the man in this relationship." And I pushed him off of me. We get up the stairs. He's pushing me, like pushing me. I'm pushing him back. I'm just like, "Get off me. Like, I need space." So he opens the front door. We get in and he pushes me so hard that my head smacks the wall. And I
Mhm.
turned around and I just open hand smacked him in the face because I'm like, "What are you doing?" The next thing I know, his fist is connecting with my face. He picks me up, body slams me on our bed. And our bed was in the living room because we had like a little sleepover in the living room. We didn't have a TV in our room at the time. And so our mattress was in the living room. So mind you, he body slams me on a box spring
Mhm.
and puts his forearm in the back because, like, I'm on my stomach. He puts the forearm in the back of my head. And he said, "I told you, you're gonna remember who the man is in this relationship." And I'll never forget how embarrassed I was after I left him because I literally begged that man not to leave. Like, I'm literally crawling on my knees begging him not to leave the house, and he does anyway. But that's what happens when you're stuck in a trauma bond. Like, that's
Mhm.
what happens when you're
Mhm.
in the throes of it.
Mhm.
So, you know what I'm saying? It's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. We were both drinking, hot of the situation. And I was like, okay, things escalated. Maybe it was because of the alcohol. Like, we need to just lay off the alcohol. I played a part in this too. You know how it goes.
Oh, yeah, yeah, when you start to
Um,
rationalize and
Start to
mhm.
rationalize and you start to take accountability for things that you don't need to take accountability for. And so, and that was in March, and then we moved to North Carolina together in May,
Mhm.
and the situation happened in August, where it was in the middle of the day, broad daylight. Um, I was really tired of being disrespected. He couldn't pay his
So there was
bill.
some there were more red flags. It wasn't just
Yep,
boom, okay.
yep.
Okay.
Mhm. And so this particular instance, it was, I had just put him on my phone plan, and it was, like, right when the iPhone 5S came out, the very first one where you could use your thumbprint to unlock the phone, and I had worked so hard to get that, and he couldn't afford to pay his phone bill. He just wanted to play basketball. He was going to the league, all of that, and so I'm supposed to be holding him down, and so I put him on my phone plan, and, um all I could afford was, like, the iPhone 5C, like, the ones that like, the
With the
different
color.
colored ones. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Mhm. Mhm.
I got the blue one, and I gave him my 5S, and so, yeah, so as soon as I did that too, I had a bad feeling. So then a couple of days later, I really needed him. I was going through some things emotionally, and I really needed him to be there. And because I was laughing, I laughed at one thing on my phone because it's a whole different story. But he saw that as, okay, well, you clearly have somebody entertaining you on your phone or whatever. So he went to his brother's room, which was right next door. And so I went in there and I'm trying to talk to him, and he's not talking to me. He's not making eye contact. He's just in his phone. And it just was something that was just triggering me so bad. So I said, "You know what? I can't do this anymore. Um, I'm gonna take my stuff. I'm gonna pack all of my stuff, and I'm gone." And at that moment, he put the phone down on the bed,
Mhm.
and that's my property. And so I went to go grab the phone. The phone wasn't touching him. I wasn't touching him, nothing. And I said, "I'm taking this back. I'm going to return this other phone because you have 14 days to do that. You can figure out how to pay your own phone bill. I'm taking my phone back. I worked hard for this." And the moment I touched that phone, all hell broke loose.
Mm.
He's grabbing me. He's swinging on me. He throws me on the bed. He's putting his forearm in my throat. And I'm kicking and screaming and just hoping that anybody can hear me. And I'm like, "Get off of me, get off of me, get off." And he would not get off of me. And I'm screaming and I'm fighting back. And he's hitting me. And somehow I think I like kicked the phone off the bed, so it fell off the floor. It fell on
Mhm.
the floor, so he got off of me and he goes to get the phone, and at that point I didn't even care about the phone anymore. But I like rolled off the bed and fell down, so I'm like, now like the wall is here and then here's the door. So I guess this way. So
Mhm.
um the wall is here and here's the door, and I'm going to lean up just to stand up because I rolled off the bed, and he starts to drive his head into my stomach.
I mean,
He
he is full on attacking you. Like, what
I
the?
don't know what was in that phone, but he did not want me to see it.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, yo, I was like, you could have the phone. Get off of me. Like, get off of me. And so we're struggling back and forth. I'm finally able to get out of the room and walking down the hallway. He's pushing me. I'm pushing him back. He's pushing me. I'm pushing him back. It was one of those things where, like, I go to walk around the corner in the kitchen. And again, he pushes me so hard that my head smacks off the wall. And I pushed him. And for whatever reason, there was a couch in his kitchen. I don't want to put his mama business out there like that, but there was a couch in the kitchen. And I pushed him so hard, it ego checked him because he fell on the couch.
Mhm.
Stands up and draws back like he was gonna punch me in the face. And he goes, oh, instead of doing it, he lifts me up by both my arms and throws me into the kitchen cabinets. My head hits the back of it, and he's just banging me. And I reached
Oh.
down at whatever I could grab, and I had a pot, and I just smacked him in the face with it. He let me go, and he's like, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" Like playing the victim, like I'm the one attacking him. So he leaves. I don't know where he goes. I don't care. I call my dad. I'm crying. And
Mhm.
so mind you, my dad was a probation officer at the time. My dad's been a probation officer literally my whole life. And
Mhm.
he told me the three things to do if you're ever in an abusive relationship and they put their hands on you. One, defend yourself. Two, call me. Three, pack your and leave.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did in
Right.
that order. So I packed all my stuff as
And
much
you
as
were
I could fit
and
in
didn't look back.
as much as I could fit my 2011 Ford Fusion, and I drove to Charlotte because I was in Fayetteville. I drove to Charlotte where one of my high school best friends lived. I
Mhm.
drove 3 hours, and then I stayed the night with her, and then I drove 12 hours to St. Louis where my ex-girlfriend's mom lived, and then after that, I drove another 12 hours to Colorado,
Mm.
and I was like in that moment, I was like, "Nah, we're both sober. This
Mhm.
is
There's no
crazy.
excuse. There's no
There's no
excuse.
excuse. I gotta go.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
to go." And so I just threw and the thing I remembered the most too is like I remember I had an envelope that had my birth certificate and my social security card in it. That was the first thing that I grabbed at the top of the closet. I said, if I don't get anything else, I'm
Yeah.
getting these documents and I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I did.
So after experiencing that sort of relation, because there was love. I mean, y'all were like in love, and then he shocked you, and then it was this. Did you do some self-healing? Did you do like before you got into the next relationship? And I'm not sure if it was back to back. I'm
No, it wasn't
praying
back.
not. Like, but did you do the healing that you needed to do? When did
No.
your healing journey really start?
So, no, actually I didn't. I think I was talking to one of my best friends the other day about this too. Um, I left and I went back to Colorado and I moved back in with my dad and my stepmom. And the first thing that was kind of said to me was like, well, if you want to cry or if you want to be upset about the situation, like you got to do it downstairs because I was going to live in the basement. You got to do it downstairs, like we're trying to have a good time. So I couldn't. The precedent was already set that I could not feel my feelings.
Mhm.
And so I applied for a job with the company that I was working for in North Carolina as an unarmed security guard. I applied for that same company in Colorado, and I think it was like I think it was like over the weekend, and then by that Tuesday I had a job interview and I started working that same week. So I
Mhm.
immediately threw myself into work, and then undergrad started again like a week or two after that. And so I immediately threw myself into work and finishing my undergrad. And that's all I could focus on. And
Mhm.
I just, it was just, I never had the chance. I never could deal with it. I had horrible nightmares. I
Mhm.
mean, really, really, really bad nightmares. And to be honest, that there's a lot of that time I don't really remember. I don't think I was making. I know I wasn't making good decisions and with coping, and
Mhm.
I didn't throw myself into any relationships. But there were situationships, and there are people I was talking to, but I really was like trying to really understand like what happened, like
Mhm. Yeah.
but more so focused on trying to finish my undergrad
What
while
about
working.
what about the narcissistic relationship? How did that come about? How did you realize you were in a narcissistic relationship?
Ooh,
And then
child.
someone because I always think about the analogy of a hurricane. You're in it, you
Yep.
hunker down, and it's
Mhm.
not until everything has cleared, the storm has passed, when you come out and you assess the damage. So, was it a
Yeah.
situation? Yeah.
So, so I was in a situationship before him, and I kind of met him during that situationship. And back when I was a corporate baddie, I dated two people that worked at the same job that I worked. And I don't recommend that. But the only reason why I did was because we worked on such different parts of the campus that I literally would never see them. But the way that I met them was because I was an armed security guard first before I moved internally into the company. And so I think him and I like had exchanged numbers, and then he told me that I didn't have a good reputation. Like there were rumors swirling about me because of my situationship. And he was narcissistic. That it took me a while to realize that what happened with that one too. But anyway, so we stopped, we fell off, and then I don't really know. And then I saw him in the cafeteria, and I was like, dang, he's looking good.
Mhm.
And then he saw me and he was like, yeah. And then we started texting and we started talking. Um, we didn't. So what really got me with him, this was the love bombing phase, right?
Okay.
What really got me with him was like he talked a big game.
Mhm.
He opened my doors, pulled out my chairs, was whining and dining me. Um, we didn't have our first kiss until the day before he asked me to be his girlfriend, and we didn't have relations until we became official.
Mhm.
And so I was like, "Oh, that's so profound, like a man that's respectful, yada yada yada." And then very we were together for 8 months. So it was a quick relationship. I was in a place where I was able to see the red flags very quickly.
Okay.
The blaring red flags for me, and this was the time where I started getting sick. And I didn't know what was going on physically. I didn't know, like, but I just was in excruciating pain all the time. And so I realized that he was getting violently angry. He never put his hands on me, but he was
Okay.
getting violently angry um at the lack of how many times we were having spicy time.
Okay.
And that was very off-putting to me, especially being an SA survivor. That was very off-putting to me because I was putting out as much as I could.
Mhm.
There was a time where we literally did it like 7 times in one day, and that was still not enough for him. And I was like, my girl can't go no more. Like we need a
So
break.
you were the problem if you couldn't do that 8th time. Like, all the 7
Yes.
times that
It did.
happened
Yes.
before didn't
Mhm.
even matter, didn't even
Yep.
count, but that 8th time, that no,
Mhm.
now you're the problem, right?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep. And so, another huge red flag was when I had created the How to Love Me journal for him because I was trying to figure out how to communicate with him. I didn't I was having a hard time verbally communicating with him because some of these things that I've gone through was difficult. But if I want to bring up something about your behavior that's kind of stressing me out, and I do, and then you start screaming and yelling at me, like, so I was trying to find a way to communicate with him that would limit the violent outbursts, like the
Mhm.
violent communication. I am a
Mhm.
nonviolent communicator. So, um, and one time we were driving home and he was so angry about the book, about the journal, and was mad and was screaming and yelling and was punching the steering wheel. And mind you, dude was big. Like he was
Because you
6'4",
created a
230.
journal? But,
Oh,
like
yeah. He was like, "Why can't I just ever find somebody that's normal, that hasn't been through anything?" Like, I'm always like, he was victimizing himself.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
And so, things just really started to go downhill, and then I started therapy. I started going to therapy for a different situation that happened from because I was being sexually harassed at work, and so I was going to therapy for that, but then I started talking to my therapist about my relationship. And one night I was telling him I came home, I was really happy about the therapy session, and he just got so annoyed. He was like, "Why wouldn't you hear from a therapist that all of a sudden, like, I've been telling you this for," and it just flipped it on me and just like read me for filth, right? Like
Mhm,
told me I was worthless, like just did like everything. He just threw the
mhm,
whole book at me.
mhm,
And we were supposed to have a couples photo shoot the very next day. And I'm laying in bed next to this man that does not like me. And
mhm.
I was like, how am I supposed to go to this photo shoot and
Smile, look pretty, be all
smile
over you when
and
you
love
clearly everything I do
and
is a problem.
you don't like me? That's what
Mhm,
it was for me. I'm like, this man does not like me.
mhm,
So I'm texting my best friend and she was like, I know you don't want to hear this, but you're in an abusive relationship. And she made me say it. And then I said it. And then I looked at him. I woke him up. I said, yeah, I'm done. I can't do this. I'm gonna grab my dog because I have my dog with us. I'm gonna grab my dog. I'm gonna pack a bag. I'm gonna go. Hey, beautiful. I'm seeing some in the comments. my girl is on here. But I was like, I'm gonna take my dog. I'm gonna pack my bags. I'm gonna go stay at my parents' house, and then we'll figure out how to move my stuff, the rest of my stuff later. And all he said was, "Okay."
No fight. No fight. No fight.
Nothing.
No fight.
So, I went and stayed at my parents' house. Um, and then the next day I told my parents what was going on, like what happened. And then my dad was like, "All right, well, text him and see if we can go pick your stuff up on Sunday. What's a good time for him?" So I texted him. I was like, "Hey, what's a good time for my dad, my stepbrother, and I to come get my stuff from your house?" And all
Mhm,
he said like a really long line of dots, and he was like, "Okay," and he was like, "Anytime works." Like he didn't believe that I was really gonna leave him.
mhm.
And then I go and pick up my stuff, and it was the most passive aggressive situation I'd ever been in. To the point where I wasn't even putting stuff in boxes anymore. I was just grabbing stuff and just throwing it in my car.
As
My
fast as you
and
can.
he wasn't all he was doing was taking stuff and just putting it by the front door. Like, he was being so passive aggressive, didn't say a word to me. And my dad knew, like, my dad knows me very well, and so I, like, walked past him after I threw my clothes in the car, and he was like, "You ready to get out of here?" I was like, "I'm ready to go, like, I can't." And so we finally get done packing up the stuff, and I was like, "Sorry, we couldn't make this work." And the dramatics, oh, the
Mhm,
dramatics. And then this man starts going off on me. Mind you, my dad and my brother are downstairs, like, because we lived in a townhouse, so, like, they're
mhm.
downstairs packing stuff, packing up the car my dad's trailer. This man starts yelling at me. He's like, "You're not gonna run with the narrative that," because mind you, because I started How to Love a Battered Woman when I was with him. He hated it. He was
Oh,
not
he hated the
supportive.
journal, he hated
Woo!
you
He
in
was not
therapy, he hated
supportive
you.
at all.
Uh-huh,
He 'Cause
mhm,
he didn't want anybody knowing that I was that's another tactic, right? He didn't want anybody else to know that he was treating me this way. So, he was like, the narrative is not gonna be that I'm abusive, that I was abusing you, da 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 da." And I was like, "But," "But you are abusive." And he was like, you're abusive, and then just starts going off on me. He called me a big ass baby in front of my dad. He was like, "Hey, I'm not abusive. You're just a big ass baby. And you can't handle when somebody's telling you the truth about themselves." And as I'm like, he's walking after me. Like I said, he's 6'4", 220.
Mm-hmm.
He 220, 230. He's walking after me. I'm trying to leave. And my dad's walking up the stairs, and I'm just trying to get us out peacefully because my dad can hold it together, but my dad also gets real gangsta if he has to. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to walk out, make sure my dad like don't put the paws on him. And and as soon as I like walked out and I saw my dad, he's like, "Let's go." I was like, "Yep, I'm ready to go." And I don't remember what my ex said, but he said something that triggered me, and then I just started calling him every name in the book. I lost it. I
You had
couldn't
to get
keep
you
my
got your look
composure
back. You wanted to get your look
yes,
back.
because I was like, "What?" So then I get in the car and I drive down because we were living in up in the mountains at that time in Colorado. And so I get down to the gas station that I was gonna go wait and meet my dad at, and I sit there, and then I just screamed,
Hmm.
"I'm free!" And I just started laughing, and I started laughing and crying. I was so happy that I was free.
Mm.
And then after that, I was like, "You know what? I need to do some deeper work." So I started doing EMDR, and I
Okay.
really needed to get to a place where I could see that I needed to identify like, I needed to figure out why I was so attracted to these type of people. Like, what
Mhm.
was it about them that was I gravitated to that abusive, violent behavior? And that's because I was accustomed to it. I grew up with it. That's what was comfortable for me.
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
comfortable in chaos.
Yeah.
And so and then I realized the root cause of it all was my mom. And I I'm doing some more psychotherapy now. I'm doing more EMDR now. And with my in my book, Letters to You, there's a section that shows a little bit more of the journal entries and stuff. And I have a section that I had written almost everything I could remember that he has ever said to me. And I gave that book to my psychotherapist for homework so she could have a better understanding too. And she was like, "Mr. Narcissist," because that's the name of the chapter. And she was like, "He said those things to you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, what did that remind you of?" And I was like, "My mother. I was in a relationship with my mother." And
Mhm.
she was like, "Your mother would talk to you like that?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like I literally was in a relationship with another version of my mom.
The
So
way
to
we repeat
answer
cycles, right?
yeah, so
Repeated
to answer
cycle.
the question from Instagram, are women narcissistic? Yes. My mother was my first bully. My mother was my first abuser. My mother was the first encounter I ever had with someone that I truly and genuinely believe my mother has NPD.
Mhm.
There is a huge I'm not just talking about narcissistic traits. I'm talking about
Diagnosis.
there's a
Mhm.
yes, there is a mental illness like component to it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But yeah, my so that's so once I went to therapy and I was able to realize that. And when I went to therapy too, like the biggest thing I wanted to do was with EMDR, I needed to address my issues with men. And
Mhm.
so I picked a male therapist as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
Y'all, Dusty called me out on our first thing. He's like, "Why can't you make eye contact with me?" I was like, "All right, you know what? I gotta go. I can't do this because
Isn't
you
it
all."
isn't it interesting that when you
Mhm.
go to therapy, they make you uncover things that you've suppressed or things that you don't want to talk about or things that you think are normal, and then you get in this environment and you're like, "Oh, wow, like, my mom talking to me like that." Like, I
Mhm.
always knew it was crazy, but, like, I didn't realize that there was a diagnosis related to it. So
Yeah,
when
and
it comes
I didn't know that either, and actually, I didn't know that until, I got on TikTok and I saw mental illness. I don't know if you follow mental illness, but, um, one of my he's like a big brother to me now, but I didn't know that was a thing, that was associated with it, but I always knew something was wrong.
Mhm.
What was sorry, but what was your question?
No, no, no. I was gonna say, so now going from the recipient like on the receiving end of help and getting treatment and going through these interventions, now you were a helper. You're on
Yeah.
the other end. Welcome to our end, right?
Hey.
So tell me how you transitioned from an advocate to now a coach.
So I my mission my mission when I started How to Love a Battered Woman was that I just wanted, if my goal was like, if I can just help one person feel less alone, then
Mhm.
I've done my job, because I knew that there were I couldn't be the only one that has experienced this. And I just knew that I've always, like I said, I've always talked, I've always asked questions. I was like, I don't know, like this isn't right. And then I started to go to therapy, and I started to be validated in my experiences. And so then I started to realize, like, maybe I could make this more than just a blog, more than just. And so things really, picked up for me once I started talking about things on TikTok. And then people were like, well, do you like offer coaching sessions? And I was so opposed to doing coaching at first.
Really?
I'm not
Why?
I was opposed to it because I didn't want to just. For me, it was hard to do the translation between coaching and then what happens with, like, therapy, right? Because
Mhm.
I didn't want to I don't ever want to cosplay a therapist. I'm not a therapist, that's not what I do, and if I do this, I wanna do this right, which is why I went and got my certification in relationship coaching, and I wanted to make sure I had some credentials behind me before I stepped into that realm, because I just didn't. It was something where I was like, like I said, I just don't want to cosplay a therapist, and I
Yeah.
just want to make sure
And
I
then when
have
you're
some.
dealing with people who are already traumatized,
Right,
it's you don't wanna cause any more harm than what they've
right,
already been through. Mhm.
yeah. So, and then I think for me, I was like, okay, well, if I do go into coaching, like, what do I want to focus on? What do I really want to do? Like, what's the goal? And for me, the biggest thing was, because I have a success story with my husband and our relationship, and how hey boo, because I know you're watching, uh, because of how our relationship went and how I really set the foundation of our relationship. I was like, well, I can apply these techniques and these tools into what I did for my relationship. And I started, looking into intentional dating, and then, like, what does that even mean? Like, intentional dating, and how to how to really set yourself up for a good relationship, or an amazing relationship post abuse. And a lot of that comes from the work that we do with ourselves and repairing that relationship with ourselves. And um once I was able to really outline what it was, then I just launched myself into aw, babes. He said that right back at you. Aw, love you, boo. That's husband, y'all.
That's
Um,
hubby.
that's husband. And so I really wanted to, because with him, people will ask, like, well, how did you address things so early on, or whatever the case is. And immediately I told him, I said, I think it was like maybe within our first 2 weeks of dating, I was like, I don't do screaming, I don't do yelling, I don't do any of that. So, like, if
Mhm.
we can't talk about our issues the way we're sitting here talking to each other right now, and the way that, nonviolent communication, if we can't do that, then this is not the relationship for me, and I don't wanna do this.
Mhm.
And I
That
still
comes with
remember.
confidence,
Yeah,
being able to walk into a relationship and
right.
have non-negotiables. That
Yes.
that that takes
What
confidence.
what are your deal breakers, right?
Yeah.
And so, and for me, it was such a fulfilling moment, because he literally did this. He goes, "Is that it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, where do I sign up? Because like I'm looking for the same thing. And I was like, wow. And to this date, we just passed our 4-year anniversary.
Oh.
To this day, we have never gotten into an argument. We've never screamed or yelled at each other. I think we've only had 2 major disagreements where we say, let's revisit this, where we can talk about it when
Mhm.
we're, we have a clearer head,
Mhm.
and we'll do that. And we've always addressed it from we look at it as a unit. And so being able to have that and see how it's working, and being able to apply that in real time
Mhm.
is what is what I'm doing with my coaching. And so it just kind of all came full circle and tied together, and has really been the foundation of our relationship. Like the only time I ever hear him yell is when we're watching the Bills play. Go Bills, Bills
Oh,
Mafia.
my whole family's
Uh,
from Buffalo.
my husband's from upstate New York. So I have to be, I gotta support my man. So
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
stick beside him. So
My
go
man, my
Bills,
man, my
Bills
man.
Mafia. My man, my man, my man. And when he's playing Warzone or something on his computer and it's not making him happy, like outside of that, he's the most soft spoken. Like he's not aggressive,
Yeah,
he's not angry. So
yeah.
um and yeah, so I really like took things that I learned during the dating phase with him, and how I opened up about the communication with him, the pace of revealing and peeling back the layers of my trauma. And I have I'm sorry, my best friend just texted me and she said my favorite parents,
Oh,
me and my husband. She's a shout out to Leah. She's watching right now, and
hey,
Angela.
Leah. Hey, Leah.
Um, so yeah, so being able to use those,
Yeah,
yes,
your
use those,
testimony built your coaching program. Like,
yeah,
it
and
just that's the way it should be, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
it's and I want people to not even when it comes to looking for healthy relationships, right? It's like I didn't looking at the things that we're dealing with, and how do we take our power back,
Mhm,
and how do we what does power mean to you, and
mhm.
how do we step into our purpose? And it took me a while to get to that place. um just a quick backstory too, because for a while there I was like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's happening. And a couple years ago I got really sick. I have 3 brain conditions. 2 of them required that I had 6 brain surgeries. And I was like, what is the point? Like, what is happening? Like, I don't understand. I don't know what my purpose is.
Mm.
And I had to take a step back, and I literally had to go back and I said, I have been fighting for my life. I've been fighting for my voice, for my power, literally since the day I was born. I was born on April
Mhm.
25th, 1993.
Oh, a
And I
day
was,
before my husband. You're a
hey,
Taurus.
Taurus gang. And I was supposed to be born on July the 7th, and I was
Oh.
born on April 25th. So I was in an incubator for 26 days. Like literally, when I say I've been fighting for my life, for my whole life, I have been. And so I had to take a step back, and I said, okay, well, what is my purpose? And I was like, I don't, wait a minute. Nia means purpose in Swahili.
Mm.
And I was like, okay, well, what does Renee mean? And I was like, well, okay. So I looked, and Renee means reborn, born again, or rebirth in French.
Mhm,
And I consider October the 2nd, 2019, the day I got my second chance at life, and I was reborn again,
mhm.
after my first brain surgery. And my middle name is Miracle, so it all aligned. And I was like, I
Purpose,
literally,
rebirth, miracle.
hmm and I
Mhm.
was like, okay, this is in me. Like
It's
this
in you.
is in my DNA. It's instilled in my body. Physically, it is me. My
Mhm,
purpose is me. I'm here
mhm.
for a reason. And then I started to define, like, what does power mean to me? How do I define my power? How do I define that? And defining power for me was like, I have to take it back. I was like, I have to take it back. And I have to yes, I have to continue fighting. But what am I fighting for? Because
Mhm.
before I would fight for other people and other things and to make other people happy, no, I have to fight for me. I have to fight
Mhm.
for me. And it really spoke true to me because I was literally fighting for my life.
Mhm.
And once I decided to bet on me, and once I decided to put me first, and once I decided to do what was best for me and my family, me and my husband, everything changed for me. And so that was the turning point in what I needed, in what direction I needed to go in, because it literally in every step I take, it physically, it is me. I am it.
Yeah. Yeah. You went back to the source. You
I
went
went to
back
the root.
to
Yep.
the beginning to
Mhm.
define your purpose, define your power. You would not have known who you were if you didn't take a moment to prioritize yourself and your own needs, right? Like
Yeah.
being in relationship after relationship, trying to make other people happy, trying to make relationships work. It was all focused on outward. So
Yes,
when
it
you
was
got quiet,
outward.
yeah, when you got quiet and you went back to the beginning, all the way to the beginning, I mean,
Yeah.
all the way back to
I
the
mean,
beginning.
back to, yeah. We went
It,
back
we
like
went way
30
back.
years. Like, yeah, we
Yeah, yeah.
went back in time for sure.
I could literally talk to you all day long. You know,
Girl, we
like
gotta,
there's
you know what I'm
so
saying?
many topics. Like
Yeah.
I I cross AKA and my line name is 41 questions. So literally I want to ask you about the surgeries. I want to ask
Yeah.
you about the journal. I want to ask you about your husband. Like I could talk to
Yeah.
you all day long, but I value your time and I appreciate you coming on here, and you're always welcome back. And
Yeah,
I would
thank
love to be on
you.
your podcast because I think that this is so important. And I want you all to understand, like anybody who's listening, is that there is there is power in therapy and coaching. And the
Mhm.
difference, just in case someone's watching and they're like, well, I don't know, like, do I need therapy or do I need a coach? You need both.
You need both.
You need
Yeah.
both of them, right?
Yeah.
Because therapy is going to help you unpack the trauma. It's going to take you backwards. It's going to help you heal. Therapy is like a flashlight on your path, right? Like you didn't know it was there. And I feel like coaching is like, all right, game plan, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm good, I feel good, and I'm ready.
Mhm.
So I'm ready to date. You know, I've
Yeah.
healed, I've taken some time, I've processed what I've been through. I know why I attract or people are attracted to me. Now I need a game plan. Now I need
Mhm.
somebody who's going to come in who has lived. Please research your coaches. Like she's saying, she has lived it. She has a game plan. It works. 4 years in the making, honey.
4
4
years in
years.
the making. Yeah,
So
thank you. Oh, we just
coaching,
passed August the 1st too, so yeah. Yeah.
my 16-year anniversary is August the 21st. So
Yay.
yes, yes. So
August
if
is a
you're
good month for love.
August is a good month. So if you're trying to figure out what you need, or if you're in a situation where you feel like, wow, like I wish that I was out of the fog, you know, or
Yeah.
dang, like I'm looking at them and they're beautiful and they're married and I'm stuck in a narcissistic relationship. We're both here in the middle of the day on a Friday to
Mhm.
tell you that we see you, we hear you, we love you, and we want to help you. Like that's
Yes, and
it.
you're not alone.
You're not alone. You're not
You're not
alone.
alone.
So where can they find you, Nia Renee?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram at How to Love a Battered Woman, on TikTok and Facebook. All of that's the same. And you can also find my website at www.howtoloveabatteredwoman.com.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's where
And
you
if
guys
they
can
want your
find me.
journal, like if they want to log off of this and immediately buy your journal, where can they find it?
Yes, so you can go to my website and then you can go to my shop and then it'll take you to the different books that I have and the journals that I have that are linked to Amazon, and you can get it in 2 days.
Yeah.
Amazon shipping. So,
You can be
yeah,
journaling by
it's all available
Sunday.
on there. Yeah, or it on yeah, exactly. And if it's easier too, if you find me on Instagram, it's the link to my bio, it'll take you to my Amazon author shop and you can go find all of my books. I always recommend, if you're going to get the How to Love Me journal, also get the Letters to You book that I wrote as well, because you'll get to see my Love Me journal and how vastly different it is to the journal that I created out of such a dark time in my life. And then it also give you guys a chance to kind of see if you feel like you're never going to find love again or you feel stuck. And you'll see journal entries and passages and things that I've written 10 years ago, and even up to a couple of years ago, and you'll be able to just see the journey of where I was, and you'll probably identify with it a little bit, and realizing that some of the thought process that you might be having is very similar, and then you can see where I am now, happily married. And yeah, so I think I always recommend both of those together. But and then if you want to coach, if you want to, book a
Mhm,
session with me too, it's
mhm,
all on my website.
mhm, mhm. Thank you again. Everyone, have an amazing weekend. We'll see you again here next Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And if you have a testimony or if God is calling you to share what you've been through or what you're going through, please reach out. I would love to have you on the platform. And y'all have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Thank you for having
You're
me.
welcome. Bye.
Bye, guys.